Yo. So check it. Yesterday we talked about how to get an offer in your ninth grade year. We talked about, parents making a commitment with your athletes at a young age, like sixth grade, running track, and dominating the camp circuit. And those are all things that you can kind of do outside of, the institution that you go to, whatever high school or the area that you're from. When you start getting into your high school selection, and there is a high school selection, your brand matters, and that's across the board. Your personal brand and where you're going to kind of play your high school football. There's an aspect, depending on what high school you go to. There's a connection to that seventh and eighth grade program to the high school, the powerful programs. And from a recruiting coordinator standpoint, a lot of times that's when we heard about the athletes or the next upcoming prospects are from, those powerhouse programs that have promising freshmen that are coming up in seventh and eighth grade that they're hearing about and different things of that nature. That wasn't my situation when I went to high school. At the time, at middle school and things like that in the area, I went to a powerhouse football school, which was Woodland Hills, at the time in seventh and eighth grade. And the way it was set up is, seventh and eighth grade, we would take buses at the end of school and come up and lift weights with the high school coaching staff. And that was just a way for the high school coaching staff to get first eyes on kind of, the next upcoming group of players, getting them integrated in the weightlifting program, kind of seeing what your makeup is going to be, right? And when that happens, and like when you're at a school like that where there's coaches always continually come in, they're going to mention the younger players that have big paws per se, that are coming through the workouts, that may have different traits that you know about, or that you're valued per se. So when I was coming up, at the time, the head coach at the school I'm talking about, Woodland Hills, would talk to me about track all the time. That's why I always talk about that piece kind of adding validity to your speed or just whatever college coaches are looking for from a skill standpoint. And, understanding how, like, there was plans being made, whether it was to play or, like, what position maybe could fit, and, like, kind of understanding where different things fit. I mean, I was in seventh and eighth grade when these things were happening. I ended up transferring to, Gateway High School at the time, and wasn't a powerhouse. And I remember thinking that the connection to middle school and to the high school and just how the whole culture at the school before was like, this is a big, a disadvantage. I mean, when you're going against schools that kind of go along the whole way. So when I'm thinking about picking schools as a recruiting coordinator, I've seen places like whether it's in the DMV or Texas and California where seventh and eighth graders are going on official visits to high schools because they understand that what high school they go to, like there's always college coaches going, whether it's the skill development that they're going to get there, and it's iron sharpens iron. I know we always talk about going around to the camp circuit, going around and competing. The benefit of going to some of these high schools, if this thing is serious for you, is you get to compete against the best players all the time. And that's another, aspect of this whole thing is successful big time high school programs. Like, you're aware of the guys that are upcoming. So, like, not to say that you can't make it or can't get an offer if you're at a smaller school, whatever the case may be. It's just, you have to bring attention to it. All I'm saying is trying to get yourself into the stream of, talent evaluators or whatever the case may be, and then you have to shine from there. So we would see it always when I lived in Dallas, Texas. I used to train some kids at, South Lake Carroll, and it was an interesting program. You put a lot of high school players out, and, last year, Quinn Ayers, the top rated quarterback, came from that high school. It was always interesting to me how they had their midget programs all the way up from, when you start at 8 or 9 years old, all the way up to the high school, running the same offense. So they ran the same type of mechanics. And so by the time they got to high school, they were like operating on a different level, and they knew who the players were. There was a level of talent evaluation, and getting in that system prepares you and gives you a chance to make that next jump when you get to high school. Again, not to say that you can't go to a smaller school and figure it out and make those adjustments and get found. Like, talent evaluators and scouts and coaches are going to find you wherever you are. This whole thing is just a matter of, in that ninth grade year, being, get into like a good program for those many different reasons of being ahead of the curve and getting on that outlier stance, right? Because like the modern days, the IMGs, when we used to recruit those schools, the coach, the first thing he would start telling me about is the ninth grader that's coming up or the eighth grader that's coming into the school that we need to, keep eyes on. So you just want your name to be brought up in those things if you haven't gotten to that situation where you've gone to the camps or you ran track or anything of that nature. So getting to the school is one aspect. The next piece is when you do get to like those powerhouse type of programs is you want to play varsity. Like at the end of the day, maybe it's like a little jockeying from your parents or whatever the case may be. A lot of times in these programs, the head coaches know who the next coming guys are and they give them opportunity to play JV or varsity. And at these schools, as a talent value or watching first film, we would watch JV film of a Hoover or JV film of like a modern day to just see what the young guys look like, right? And sometimes their film would be a little better than varsity film in some areas of the country. So like you want to get to a program where you can play as a full comprehensive, football place if that's what you're trying to do. And you want to play JV or varsity. And when you get on the field, it's just not a matter of being out there. You're playing with house money. So this gives you an opportunity to play fearless, show a level of competitiveness that can stand out, right? Because when you're on the field as a freshman at these programs, you're already given some level of, some level of a stamp that you're somewhat good to be on the field as a freshman. So when you're playing with house money, you can play fearlessly and compete with everybody. And at that point, you're just, again, putting yourself in that outlier stance when it comes to the evaluation and recruiting process. I mean, freshman Aliquippa this past year, I'm in Pittsburgh, but freshman Tyke, he killed it at a powerhouse program like Aliquippa that has a history of putting out great Hall of Fame players. I'm sure everybody knew about him coming up, and like there was somebody that brought his name up when he was in 7th and 8th grade. Is like he's going to be the next one, and that's kind of how the different football communities around the country operate. I know, like recruiting Jersey and different things like that, like the midget programs. Like there's a brand that precedes you as a player, and that's why I wanted to start this off saying your brand does matter. When you're going into high school and different things like that, and that's why I say starting to shape that the skills that go along with the expectations when you are kind of the next one up in the 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th, 10th grade time frame. You're talking 11, 12, 13, 14 years old. Start looking at it like you're a business entity, not so much as like the numbers and things like that, but making strategic and intentional decisions about how you're moving. So that's what I'll leave you with today on the second part of, how to get an offer in your 9th grade year, and your brand matters. And we'll be talking about some more things going into the 10th grade, 11th grade time frame, and like how to maneuver those areas in your career. So thanks for joining. Peace. Life is good.